Okay, but you can see we've got doors still to do, so I kind of want to really deal with the door that's got some shape to it. This is just a very simple plain panel of a door, but the other door has got a much more shape to it. So let's just click on the doors and switch everything else off. So you go to the display tab, hide unselected. Okay, so we've only got these doors to deal with now. So we want to modify these. Let's collapse them like we did the others. Collapse all. And we'll break off these faces and call that door plane. So I want to take away these faces, detach for our door plane. Okay, just a really basic panel for those. And now I want to work on this door, so I'm going to go to a side view here so I can see just that door and maximize that. Okay, now let's call up a photograph of that door, and we'll just be able to explain it. So 4R, there's a good photo of that door. Okay, I've got my little doodle tool here, I can draw on it. If it pops up, where's it gone? Here we go. Okay, it's yellow at the moment. So we've got material 1 here. Okay, and then everything else is material 2. Okay, my pen is a bit on the big side there. Problem is the grain for material 1 is all going in the same direction. That's okay. So we're all the grain is going in this direction. Okay. Material 2 though has got 2 directions. There's a panel here, panel at the bottom, panel here, and a panel here. They're all going the same direction. They're going this way. Okay, everything that's left is going vertically. Okay, so we've got these bits are all generally going vertically. Now when I modelled this door, I didn't take cognizance of that. I was thinking this door was a bit too far away from anything to be bothered with, but as a little teaching sort of subject, it's quite useful. So let's try and make it do that in 3D Studio first. Okay, to see if we can bust it apart and make it look a bit more like this. Okay, we've got a slightly better wood in the panels because these are shaped from large planks, whereas the frame is more solid pieces of wood. So they do tend to be slightly different wood in the panels to the actual frame. So that's what we'll do. We'll have a slightly lighter frame and a slightly darker panel. Okay, so in 3D Studio, if I just quit my doodler, I think that's it, and back to cursor. Oh, better clear that, it's just going to stick with us, isn't it? Clear screen. Okay, off you go, you get out of the way. Okay, so we're editing this mesh, and what we'll do first is try and grab the panels only. Okay, so you're working at the face level, and you change from crossing to the more gentle window. Okay, and you have to kind of start your selection outside the object. If I start here, it ends up going straight onto a triangle. Okay, but if I start outside, I can grab much better. So it's holding control, do another selection. Okay, so I've got my panels, but I need to get rid of the edges. So it's Alt now, and very carefully trying to remove the edges of those bits. Ooh, a bit too big there. Okay, and I've done this hundreds of times, so I'm fairly well versed at doing it. So it's Alt again. I need to shave off the edge here, the edge on this side, and then the trickier one is the bit in the middle. Still need to shave off a bit too quick on that one. That looks like it's going to work. Right, if I zoom in, that's better. We're seeing the panels are just the bits inside. We've isolated the edges properly. Okay, so we can break those off. So let's copy part of the name and detach these to for our door panel. Okay. They're not selectable now. They've been broken off. They're a different object. We can't mess around with the panels. So we can try and isolate now the horizontal parts. So I'm just going to select along here, hold Control this time instead of Alt. Okay, now that's perfect shape, but this one isn't quite right because of the angle at the end. But you know, that's because of the way it was modelled. If it had been modelled differently, we could have done that. We're going to get the diagonals on this bit as well, but that's not too bad. That's not going to be a disaster. We've generally got panels, horizontals, and what's left is effectively the verticals. Okay, so we detach these now. So this will be vertical. Sorry, this will be horizontal. Okay, now we could leave everything else that's left because it's all going to get the same material. So on the back of the door, this is only a sort of single-sided 3D door. So you know, if you were opening this door, you would actually want to have it panelled on both sides, but this is smooth on the inside. Okay, let's just rename what's left. Let's get rid of the layer bit and call it vertical. Makes it much easier if they've got recognizable names. And then unselect this, so we're into the kind of edit mode now. So that's just our verticals. You can change the color of objects if you want. Just our panels. So you can see you can help improve the legibility a little bit by changing the colors of the lines, of the edges of the objects. Okay, so next step is materials. So we need one that's using a JPEG, so actually I'll just use the Dundee Stone one and call it, let's call this Teak Light. Teak Light. Okay, we need to change the JPEG for something else. We've not got a bump map, so we can kill that off straight away, but we need to swap the stone picture for the picture that I've put into the maps folder in desktop maps. Okay, so I've got a couple of Teak textures, and these are all available in the materials library that's on my OneDrive. Okay, so let's use Teak 1 as the light one. There's not a huge amount of difference between them, but that's the same on the real door. Okay, so this is going onto the vertical and the horizontal, but they'll have different mapping. Okay, so we'll click on the vertical objects and assign it. Then UVW map, box. And what we can use here is 1 meter by 1 meter by 2 meters, and that's looking pretty decent as a scale for the grain there. Okay, so that going onto the horizontal as well. So we assign the same material, UVW map. Okay, we could acquire from the other one. Save typing it in again. But this one wants rotated 90 degrees. So UVW map, rotate, and we can use this axis, and if I press the letter A, it should go in 5-degree increments. Okay, so I'm looking for it to go to 90. Okay, I was looking at this number. The minute I move away, it stops. Okay, you don't need to necessarily rotate this one to be lined up with the door. It's not going to make a heck of a lot of difference. It does look a bit better along the top of the door, but we're not going to be able to see that anyway. But you get the idea there. Okay, and then the panels. We're going to get a different version of the material, so this will be teak. Let's call it medium. It's certainly not dark. And we swap the JPEG. For this one. Okay, and assign that to the selection, UVW map, and we can use the same mapping coordinates that the vertical one has. So that looks quite tidy. I'm just going to select the object, so when I rotate it, it rotates around the object. Okay, so it was important that we got the edges here to go onto the main pieces of wood, so the panels are just the bits in between. Okay, so make sure you protect your UVW mapping there. Whoops, it's gone freaky. Let's zoom extents, that's better. Because 0,0 origin is down here, it tends to kind of spin a bit crazily sometimes. Okay, we do have the other doors. I think we can just put a different one of these other woods onto there. Maybe wood number 1 would be okay. We'll just use that on the other doors. We'll just drag that straight on. Okay, there's no mapping on that. There's no JPEG on that particular material, so no need to add any coordinates. Okay, right, so that's the door. Let's put everything back on, unhide all, so we're kind of close to the end of that particular example. Back to the camera viewport. Just to finish off the door item, I just wanted to show you what the kind of way of modelling the door. The way, if you wanted to do it, really perfectly, then there's a few stages to this. This is the 2D of the door. Okay, and to get this effect is basically a subtraction from the surface. So if I just quickly show you, just so you can suss this, and so if I extrude that to create a solid, okay, then if I go into the front coordinate system, and what I want is basically a triangle to run around that shape, and then I can use that to subtract from the main shape. Okay, so actually the world coordinate system, to be honest, world, and just a small polyline from midpoint to nearest will do, or midpoint, back 15 mil, and then close the shape. Okay, so that's going to be my kind of cutter around the shape here. So I'll go to the front coordinate system now, and when I do this I always try and pick a point in the middle of the object, not at a corner, because when you do the extrusion it doesn't really know which way to go first. So if you start somewhere along an edge, it gives it a chance to get its direction first. So it's a polyline, and come back to here. So it knows it's got to go this way, then it gets to here and it goes, ah right, I've got to turn 90 degrees. Oh right, I've got to turn 90. So extrude along a path, and that can then be subtracted from the door. Try that again. Subtract from here, enter, and now if I shade it, it looks like a panel. Nice and simple. But you know, if you were trying to do this in a more purist way, then this is really the way the framing needs to be modelled, and the panels kind of separate. Those panels came from just an exploded version of this. So if you kind of model it simply using solids, and then you can explode it, and these remain regions, so they're still 3D surfaces, but they can be copied and moved, or whatever you want to do with them. And then you could create your frame however you want to draw that. Not getting this right, so I want to go from there to there. And that would be my top piece of wood. So that's kind of how that has been done. Just kind of starting off with a solid and then breaking it down again to create the actual individual pieces of wood. But that can be taken a step further. If you were modeling just a piece of furniture or just this door, then really you're looking at 3 materials: wood grain on the front, less wood grain on the side because you're slicing in the same direction as the grain, so you don't see much pattern on the sides of a piece of wood, and then end grain, which is going basically in this direction. So how far do you go? You'd be there forever kind of modeling to that level of detail. But if it is just that example of a piece of structure, then that's the kind of lengths you need to go to get the graphic to look just right. You've got to kind of think which way is the materials, which way is the grain and the material facing. Okay, so that's the kind of door scenario. I will stop my sharing there and see what you guys are saying. These are going to say, scan of the church too. Yep. So I think it's Maya that's modelling the church, but if you don't want to wait for her, I can get a link for you to the church scan. I would certainly check out Google Earth Pro to try and understand how that roof shape works, because it is a bit complicated. Especially the Perth Road seems to be the kind of complicated part. There's some strange stuff going on behind the frontage there. Further back, as it goes down to Rose Angle, it's kind of a bit more obvious what the shape should be, but certainly behind that Perth Road bit, it's very, very tricky. But Maya has kind of drawn the plan up for that, and the elevations are well underway. You might be better to speak to Maya and see how she's getting on, and if she'll share her stuff with you, it'd save you a hell of a lot of time trying to get your head around the shape of that church. It is pretty nasty. Yeah, see what she says. I'll send you a link to the scan anyway. But she's not sent me her plans, her 2D stuff yet, so I haven't got it. I can't share it yet. She's kind of, I don't know if she's tweaking it or she's forgotten to share it. I'm not sure. But Maya's the one doing the church, and I'll just write that down. Link, scan link, church scan link for doing. It's a pretty important building to have on this model for sure. It's kind of slightly overwhelming and overpowering. Okay, that's the